I still have to remember, like, we are fringe. We are very small. We're nowhere near masses. If I think about, the conversations I have with family members, and either they've been burned or something's happened
Hmm.
before, and like, what does this do in terms of the impression that we leave as to whether or not the industry is filled with serious people, or are the serious people effectively just put into a corner?
Hmm.
And so I do think like there's something to be said about that. I probably haven't given too much thought beyond the occasional night sweats. Thinking about sort of market liquidity and it being pulled from all various different places. But anyways, uh, now back to the. Sorry, I said I thought it was going to be a quick caveat. It wasn't. Um,
I love those.
yeah. So my time at VeChain. So yeah, I head up our institutional growth and capital markets efforts, which I really try to, which is just I guess it's a somewhat fancy way of trying to say I engage directly with professional capital allocators and directly with market or professional market participants, namely traders, yeah, large trading shops. Um, and why do I think it's important? Or because what's pretty unique about this technology is there's always a market
Mm.
for, like, the tokens are a requirement, right? Um, and there's a market for these things 24/7, and it's important that at any point in time, at anywhere in the world, you're able to get a price for something. I think that's really, really, yeah, it's something that um, has always been spoken about, but it's live and it's true, and we're,
Hmm.
and we're experimenting and experiencing it today. And so I'm often talking with folks on, hey, how can we improve effectively what we refer to as the liquidity, the ability for at any point in time someone who's looking to purchase or sell any one of the native tokens that are live on VeChain Thor, that they're able to do that, and they're able to do that in a way that doesn't feel as if they're getting a bad price or getting bad
Hmm.
execution.
Sure.
So I mean that's the capital market side. On the institutional growth side, it's really sharing the narrative and story about, hey, these are the things that the foundation's working on. These are sort of the developments in activities that are taking place. Here's why we think our approach to application and growth is unique and interesting. Um, and here's potentially how you can get involved. And so sharing the various ways or exploring various ways, oftentimes it comes from them. And I think that's really important, is like understanding that if getting their buy-in and getting them to
Hmm.
also be a participant and client in sort of the growth is really important. And perhaps most important is oftentimes their feedback, their thoughts
Hmm.
on how they explore it, how they think there are potential use cases that could exist in the network that we support, would be something that's inviting to them. So that's how I spend my time. I'll pause because I feel like I was a little all over the place there.
No,
We can
no,
go in any
that
direction.
answered.
It's interesting.
It answered a lot of questions. I think like the space is definitely changing, and maybe the ETS have led that. Like a lot of the early crypto stuff was very much individuals, retail. Probably why the NFT craze went so big. Probably why the meme coin craze is happening right now is that it's not about the underlying technology, the fundamentals. Like what problem are you solving? It's very much like, can you make a quick buck? Do you think other people are going to believe in Trump coin or Melania coin, whatever it's going to be, and you don't really think that that's going to have real world utility. You don't think that's going to be used for remittances across the world, right? Like you think, is this going to go up and can I get out before it goes down on me or something like that? You know what I mean? So it's like I think that has changed. That mindset has changed with institutions. You must be aware of this as well. Like you're now speaking to professionals who have research teams who are like, okay, how does this differ from the other assets? And I think that's something that BTC did quite well. The story was fairly obvious and simple. It's like this is, this is gold, this is the digital gold, like whatever you want to call it. And they're like, oh, that makes sense, secure store of value, not going to change much, like bomb proof, all this kind of stuff. And I think that's why a lot of people said that maybe the Ethereum ETF didn't go as well, still super successful, like you said, but not
Mhm.
as well maybe as Bitcoin's, because the narrative's a bit more confused. It's a bit more, oh, actually, this is deeply technical with the settlement layer for the internet. And then, okay, what does that mean? How does that compare to what I understand with traditional markets? It's a bit different, right? That's quite a hard sell. And then you
Totally.
see there's loads of other crypto coins now that are trying to get their own ETFs, trying to get more institutional adoption. How has the response been to, say, to VeChain's story? VeChain's an OG in this space, like been around for a long time, well-known brands. Like, what's been the kind of the reaction to the story of VeChain?
Yeah, it's been largely positive.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I want to couch that with some direct feedback. Here I go with the caveats again. Alec, the point that you just brought up is brilliant. I know it's something that I missed earlier, but you're absolutely right. I think for the most part, um, if the industry could have, they would have maybe preferred a bit of distance in the availability of ETFs versus
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin ETFs more than the 6 or 7. Let's see, we launched in January, July, so six. I get that right? Yeah, 6 months between them. So that way, there could have been a much better opportunity to arm and educate the market around what exactly Ethereum is, which I think it's still also, depending on which forums you're in, it's still TBD. But Bitcoin had, like, it had a track record of over a decade of
Mm-hmm.
narrative, both spinning, but then also, the last half decade or so, solidifying around sort of the gold, the digital gold narrative, and that
Mm-hmm.
helped in terms of adoption. Um, I think it also just helped in the form of there were more folks coming online, more folks buying Bitcoin. The price certainly helped. The return certainly helped. Going back to that sort of animal nature in us, um, and very clearly there was just more conversations, and it was a very easy narrative, candidly, for
Mm-hmm.
folks who have traditionally, like, if you think about distribution and you think about how folks are, and particularly in this industry, selling products to end clients or investors,
Mm-hmm.
um, the simpler the story, the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Indexing by the market, boom,
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah.
Get your share of corporate earnings, boom, done,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, the most innovative, form of collective capitalistic socialism, like, like, it's a very easy sell, and then it's just a
Mm.
matter of, like, oh, well, how much is it for me to, how much can I get
Yeah,
access
yeah.
to a broad basket of global stocks?
Mhm.
Oh, you're cheaper, great. Got it. There's
Mm.
more, but still, it's generally it. um, Ethereum's not that. VeChain's not that. And
Mhm.
so I think, generally speaking, though, the feedback has been surprisingly quite constructive.
Mhm.
Namely, the moment that I go into a conversation and I say, "Oh, well, I'm Johnny Garcia. I'm a red VeChain now." Inevitably, the first question goes, "Wow, so you really went down market?" Or the first comment is like, "Wow, you really went down market. You're all in." I said, "Yes." And then the second one's like, "Yeah, I know VeChain. I have a little bit. You all were RWA before RWA was even a thing."
Mm.
Mhm.
Right? And, like, that is that's for me, it's always been, really positive omen, because, uh, candidly speaking, that was one of the things that really attracted me to the foundation. Is it just felt like there's a built up track record of really integral and developments to and evolutions to this entire industry, in the form of, like, there's a very clear narrative, there's a very clear market opportunity. It was going
Mhm.
after it, and it was having success. And so, like, and it was something that it resonated with me.
Mm.
It was clear for me to understand. Um, and so, like, that whenever I get that response, it resonates. Now, the follow-on question is the more difficult. The third comment, right? There's the, oh, wow, you really went down market. To Yeah, RWA before RWA was a thing. And the third one's always, so what are you all doing now?
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the more difficult question, right?
Mhm.
I mean, because as you know, Alec, I mean, there are a lot of things that we're doing, and I
Mm.
think this is in part one of the potential not drawbacks, but it's a hurdle for the industry, which is it is a general purpose technology, and
Mm.
trying to effectively what they're saying is like how are you solving for the problem that I have now?
Hmm.
And from the perspective of an institutional desk, it's how are you all like tell me how you all are growing, show me the evidence for that growth, show me how that's driving value to like how are you all attracting new users and driving value to the network, and lastly, how are you going to help me generate like what I pass on is a
Yeah.
stream of returns, right? So like again, trying to understand exactly the client and who it is that you're engaging with, I think is incredibly important. And
Hmm.
partnering with them to figure out, oh, okay, got it. It's like your focus is I offer up a stream of returns. How is that different from the other things that I'm doing? So that when packaged together, it's unique. It's a great value or sales proposition that I can then make to my end clients. Um, and so that's in essence how that's the feedback that I've been given, and that's sort of the good, bad, and the not ugly, but the good, bad, and indifferent in terms of how it's been received so far by the market.
That makes sense. And I think you are right. Like whenever you look at, I mean, RWAs, like real world assets, that is kind of the buzzword that was like digital gold, crypto 5 years ago. Now it's all about real world assets. And I think that narrative makes a lot of sense when there are like, say, projects that are basing their entire kind of market cap, transaction volume, all this kind of stuff on meme coins. I think that's a fad. I think that's people trying to, make quick money, as we've spoken about, which is, it's natural, makes sense. But long term, I think there'll be enough people burned that will start to be unappealing, and people will no longer go down that route. But the real world asset stuff, like it's something that BlackRock are constantly talking about, JP Morgan are constantly talking about, all these big asset managers. They understand the value of getting, say, traditional assets on chain purely for the same reasons that they understand the value of having, say, the digital gold equivalent. It's representing ownership. It's having something that's uptime, 24/7, consistent. You can get price action around the world, cross border, all this kind of stuff. So that narrative, I think, is going to be the new narrative in a lot of ways. I think it's a kind of a perfect merriment of blockchain technology, but deployed on kind of on top of existing infrastructure. And it's hard to know whether the kind of the peer-to-peer electronic cash system that was the previous narrative will die out, and if it'll be more about these,
Mm.
say, and I think that kind of comes from the tech in a lot of ways. Like, say, we've seen that BTC can't handle the transactions volume that it needs to do to hit the Visa, MasterCard equivalent, but it could handle the selling of contracts, homes, deeds, whatever you want. And I think that's that kind of the narrative there makes sense, and it's exciting that VeChain has been in that space for so long and is well entrenched into it and has actually been doing these things. And I think as institutions, well, hopefully you'll see this as well, are starting to understand that's the new application. They'll understand that something like VeChain is something they want to be involved in.